What if I told you that nearly 20% of India's electricity never gets paid for? It just vanishes, lost, stolen, or unbilled. Well, power thefts, distribution losses, and billing errors cost the Indian power sector to bleed more than 90,000 crores every year. And the solution? Well, it's simple: smart meters. And the companies we're going to talk about today are in this business and are perfectly poised to capture this 80,000 crore opportunity. And so, on that note, let's get into the video. So we're going to divide the video into four main parts. In the first, we'll understand the growth drivers and the demand for smart meters. Next, we'll understand the risk factors associated with this type of business and this sector. Third, we'll briefly understand the businesses of both the companies. And lastly, we'll have a look at the numbers and the valuations. So, need and growth drivers of smart business. So, there's a massive government push going on for the smart meters because DISCOMs and SEBs, that is, the state electricity boards, are the ones that are most benefited out of smart meters because it enables correct billing, reduces power thefts, and all that. So, according to the RDDS, that is the Revamped Distribution Sector Scheme, launched by Indian government, it allocates nearly 3.3 lakh crore, which is $37 billion, for improving power distribution. Of this, 1.5 lakh crore is earmarked solely for smart meters. The target is to install 25 crore smart meters, which translates to an opportunity of around 70,000 to 80,000 crore. Right. Now let's look at why the government is spending so much. So first is that the DISCOMs, that is the power distribution, for example the Maharashtra Electricity Board and all that. So they lose 90,000 crore annually just in distribution losses. The power distribution companies, that is the DISCOMs and state electricity boards, lose nearly 90,000 crores per year. These are mainly due to theft, billing inefficiency, and poor recovery. Theft means like many times people manipulate the meters to show less reading, and poor recovery means that the smart meters, they have prepaid system. That means that the customers have to pay in advance for availing electricity, similar to how our mobile plan works, like the prepaid plans. The smart meters ensure real-time billing, reduce theft, and increase collection efficiency up to 95%. That is because due to the prepaid thing, right? The energy AT&C means the aggregate technical and commercial losses at 15-17% and also 22 to 25% in some states. So this is a big number right here because it's a big number. In states like UP, Bihar, and Jharkhand, the AT&C losses reach up to 20-25%, which is a very big number. Smart meters can cut this by half, improving the DISCOM finances drastically. So billing will improve and hence the cash flows, all that we'll look into the later, but basically the financial health of the DISCOMs will improve. Target is to bring this down by 12%. Each 1% reduction in AT&C losses equals 5,000 crores saving annually. So you can just imagine how big this number is, not just for the consumers but also for the DISCOMs and SEBs like UP, Bihar, Jharkhand. The peak power demand. Now we all know this, that the India hit an all-time high power demand of 243 gigawatt in June 2023. Rising consumption, accurate demand forecasting via smart meter is critical to prevent blackouts. So what many of the smart meters do is that they predict the usage where the usage is highest. So for example, in India, 8 to 10 I think has the highest demand because that is when people leave for jobs, they make dinner, and at night 7 to 10 is the highest demand period where people watch TV, people come from home, you can imagine it. So this helps in preventing blackouts, like it analyzes the usage and then based on that it gives information. So that is another point. Manual meter reading is 75% plus today. Over 75% of India's households still rely on manual meter reading. This causes billing delays, error, and high operational cost. Right. Smart prepaid meters equal better cash flow for DISCOMs. As we were discussing earlier, smart meters enable prepaid billing where consumers recharge like a mobile plan. This ensures zero credit risk for DISCOMs and a consistent cash flow models. DISCOMs get better working capital, right? So now when we get to the numbers, we'll also see how companies that are mainly related to government, they often have high working capital days because government usually delays in making payment. For this reason only, if the government or the DISCOMs do not get payment from the consumers, it will delay in making payment to these companies. You can also see there's an example that Chandigarh showed 10 to 15% billing efficiency rise post prepaid adoption. Next, 30% state level tenders underway. States like UP, Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra, and Tamil Nadu, they have floated large tenders worth 30 to 40 to 50,000 crore. Genus Power, being a front runner, is well positioned to gain market share. Part of India's digital infra and IoT integration. Smart meters use RF/4. Just these are very technical terms, so you can read into it. Integrate into SCADA. SCADA is what I was talking about, that it integrates AI to analyze usage and all that, and align with India's digital growth. So now this is basically why there is a need for smart meters, and from this you must have understood that DISCOMs and state electricity boards and government is the one that benefits the most out of smart meter adoption, and that is another reason why they are pushing so much for their adoption. Now let's look at some of the risks that are associated with this type of business and sector, because we all know no business is foolproof and there are always two sides to a coin. So some risk factors is that it is policy and government dependency. It is heavily reliant on schemes like RDSS. Any slowdown or policy shift can disrupt demand. State level implementation and political transitions may delay project execution. This is a very important point to keep in mind, because as we'll discuss in the numbers game, that if policies like RDSS slow down, there is a slowdown in these companies. Now, boom bust cyclicality. What I mean by boom bust is that being a capex driven sector, it is prone to sharp up cycles during tenders, aggressive rollouts, and down cycle when the government spending slows. So what happens is basically, if this is a company, it gets very high demand, it shows very high growth, okay, we see upward trend in its price and its earnings. But what happens is when it tops out, that when the tenders slow down, the government capex slows down, what happens is the company's earnings and the price peak out, and we see a bust. So what happens, as we'll see in the future, as we'll see next, is that these companies show very high earnings growth, as well as very high increase in that, a very sharp increase in price, and an equally sharp drawdowns as well. Genus Power gave a return of almost 100% in 1 year, but it also corrects like 30-40% very quickly. So that is what I mean by boom bust cyclicality. Next, thus smart meter demand is cyclical, tender based, bulk orders, and heavily tied to government led capex burst, not steady consumer demand. Because once a smart meter is fixed, like it doesn't need replacement for next 10-20 years, right? So once it is fixed, and also the maintenance is pretty low. So smart meter demand is kind of cyclical, but the TAM is such big that we can make money while the demand is still there. Post large tender cycles and major implementation phase like RDSS, there is potential for sharp demand slowdown, leading to utilized capacity and pressure on financials. Now, tender-based pricing pressure, competitive L1-based bidding leads to thin margin, aggressive undercutting. So basically, what this means is that the government brings out tenders, and whoever can get the work done at the lowest price gets the contract. So in greed of getting more orders, sometimes companies take orders that have really low margins, or orders that have a negative impact on their profitability. Large scale tenders may force companies to compromise on profitability for market share, as we discussed. Now, financial health of DISCOMs. Delayed payments from cash strapped state utilities impact working capital cycles. Like if the company does not get a recurring payment or payment on time from the DISCOMs, then it will lead to working capital issue, as we saw happened in TAREL, that is Transformers and Rectifiers Limited, in 2023, as per my knowledge. Yes, during 2023, it had a similar issue, due to which it had a negative impact on its working capital cycle. Now, weak financial position of DISCOMs can stall installation and after sales service. So now that we understand the risk factors and both the sides of the coin, let's briefly understand both of the companies that are engaged in this business. First is Genus Power and second is HP Electric. Now, as you can see, it has an order book of 31,000 crores, which provides good revenue visibility, and the execution and production is happening at a high pace since the last 5 and 6 quarters. When we look into the numbers, I'll expand more upon this. The profitability is increasing by triple digits since the last 3 quarters. Means like 100, 150%, the profitability is increasing year on year. The revenue guidance the company has given is 30-40% in addition to the revenue guidance that company has given for FY25. 30-40% is okay. EBITDA margin the company is guiding is 15-16%, which is highest in the industry, and it has a whopping 70% market share in the smart meter segment, and some signs of growth tapering that I'll expand upon when we look at the numbers. Now HPL Electric, it is a kind of a diversified player because it is engaged in smart meters, but is also engaged into switch gears and those different types of businesses. I'll expand upon it later, but just understand that Genus is a company that is purely focused based on smart meters. Now it is diversifying into gas meters, water meters in Australia and all that, but smart meters remains a very that is the only business that they have. Whereas HPL Electric, smart meters are a major part, but is not the only part. They have different parts as well. So what this does, it is divided into 3 segments, which reduces the over dependence on one sector and protects itself from sector specific drawdowns. Now the management has given revenue guidance of 25-30%, which is kind of less than Genus, but is still a good guidance. And it has an order book of 3,400 crores only for smart meters. So before we discuss the number, one thing I want to highlight is that this is a narrative based story, and whether it is narrative or not, the proof can always be seen in the number. So I just wanted to highlight that. So now if we look at this Genus Power trades at a PE of 44 times, which is not cheap at all if you look at it. But if we just look at the growth that the company has been showing, we can see that 133, 80, 59, 108, 30%. So company has been increasing revenues. So this is one company that you can track independently, but valuations are still high, no doubt. But keeping in mind growth, it may not seem as expensive as it does. You can also see that profitability is increasing by triple digit numbers, right? So this just goes to highlight that it has a big order book, and also company is managing execution at the same pace, right? So company has given a guidance of 2,500 for current year, and management says it is very confident in achieving. So it will be good to see how it goes down. Plus, if you look at the balance sheet, company has a healthy amount of reserves. Company has taken on debt to because it is doing expansion and strategic investments in AMISP, that is advanced metering infrastructure facility, something like that. Plus, this is one another thing I want to highlight is that you can see the trade receivables of the company, they are increasing because company caters to government companies, and often there is delay coming from payments coming from that. Plus cash equivalence is also very healthy, so no major problems in the balance sheet. Plus even if you look at cash flows are okay, somewhat okay. Plus the ROC seems to be improving. Debtor days have reduced. Inventory days have increased a bit, but let's just see how it goes. Plus I think FIs and DIs have increased a lot of stake. FIs went from 0% to almost 22%, right? You can see big names, Nomura, Chiswick investment, good firms, and DIs also you can see Nippon Investment. And at public you can also see some very good investors in it. And also I think Vanguard group has also built a position in the company along with that. So now what I wanted to highlight is that you can see that company has a market share of almost 70% in the smart meter segment and 27% in the overall meter segment. Now let's look at the second company, that is HPL Electric, right? So HPL Electric, it is a equipment manufacturer in India. So what are the it has a 50% market share. Hold on a second. It has a 50% market share in on-load changeover switches. So basically company has 3 divisions. First is the metering, which is 60% of the business. Next is the consumer, industrial and service. This is basically switch gears, domestic switch gears, lighting equipment, wires and cables. This forms around 40% of the business. So you see how Even if the smart meter segment goes through a drawdown, HP Electric can be able to protect itself. But even in this case, value it running a P of 40 times, peg of 6, forward P. If you look at it on a forward P basis, it might not seem that expensive. No, it is 40 times. It is expensive, but let's just look at the growth rate. Which company is growing? So yeah, I think December wasn't a good quarter, but in the past it has been growing like early 20s or late teens, but not the same as Genus Power, because why? This is yeah. So you can see meter and systems in this segment. Growth is also there, but not as quite as good as Genus Power. And this net profit growth has also been there, kind of been there. So now heading on to the balance sheet. Balance sheet seems healthy, good reserves. Borrowings have also remained constant, but they haven't reduced. So we'll have to see that. I think company has good. Company doesn't have a lot of cash on the balance sheet. Plus inventories are okay. There's inventory buildup. We also saw inventory buildup in Genus Power's balance sheet as well. Right. Cash flows are good, quite a bit better than Genus Power. Plus FIDs, I don't think they have a lot of position in this. But one thing to note is that don't make a decisions based only if the FIs or DIs have a stake in the company, right? Because you need to think on your own. FIs and DIs, they have their different alibis and they have different reasons for investing in such companies. So just make up your own mind, and sometimes you gotta invest in companies where FIs and DIs might not have a lot of stake, right? So that concludes the video for today, guys. I hope you all liked it, found it informative, and do like, share and subscribe this video, and stay tuned for more videos.